The current podcast is for Assessment 3 for the course International Politics of the Asia Pacific, course code SSA 2054. The participant in this podcast is the student Ridoy, metric number 72976. This podcast is going to evaluate Farid Zakaria's lecture given to Lowy Institute in November 2020, named Looking at the Issues Confronting US China Relations and COVID 19 from Geopolitical Perspective. The podcast will evaluate Zakaria's assessment of the situation by assessing the merits and shortcomings of his lectures. In his lecture, Farid Zakaria, a prominent and renowned international affairs observer, mentioned multiple contemporary issues happening in the international arena. I would like to begin with his assessment of US-China relations nowadays. Zakaria told about the US and China as the most powerful countries globally in the multiple aspects like economy, global influence, market size, and military. There is no doubt that both countries are having the most extensive military and robust arsenal, but I do have a sort of disagreement on China's technological advancement. It is agreed that China made advancements in space technology, cyber warfare, and an advanced industrial economy, but China is still struggling with cutting edge technologies in military aspects. No wonder they have the largest navy fleet, sophisticated advancement in building artificial islands in the South China Sea to maintain its dominance in Southeast Asia. But most of their military arsenal is from reverse engineering and was accused by their decades old military ally and supplier Russia in recent times of illegally copying a broad range of Russian weaponry and other military hardware. Those include unauthorized copying of aircraft engines, Sukhoi planes, deck jets, air defense systems, portable air defense missiles, and analogs of medium range surface to air systems. China is still struggling to build its own sophisticated technology on military hardware, where the US and its allied nations are way ahead and keep upgrading their arsenal. I do have some sort of agreement with Zakaria's assessment on US strategy towards China. The US successfully makes China a significant contributor to multilateral institutions like WHO and United Peacekeeping Missions. Since China desires to become a superpower, it will have to play an impactful role globally, and with a more significant role comes greater responsibility. In that sense, I cannot give all the credit to the USA. Another shortcoming to his lecture was his comparison with Mao Zedong's China and China in recent times, where he stated China to be more conservative. Although China's recent action in Southeast Asia, debt traps in several Asian and African countries in the name of economic cooperation and Belt Road Initiative, wolf warrior diplomatic approaches, and asking countries like Australia to restrain their country's media as scholars not to criticize China's actions do not seem to be fitted with term conservative. However, China might not have invaded countries. Still, China appears to provoke countries like Japan, South Korea, Philippines, Vietnam in Southeast Asia through its dominant action in the South China Sea and in the East China Sea. Moreover, the continuous conflict with India in the border and challenging the sovereignty of other nations do not support Zakaria's statement. However, there is no doubt on the strategy pressed by Zakaria on how the US had tied its relationship with China from the Nixon era to till now, as well as strengthened its tie with countries like Australia, India in recent time, Vietnam, Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia in the Asia Pacific. But China has developed into a formidable power. The USA portrays China as an adversary due to the speed and scale of China's resurgence as well as their ideological differences. I do not have much to add to his indication about the current interdependence bipolar world order. In this new Cold War era between these two powers, countries have to pick sides carefully because none of these powers are offering a la carte in their offerings. Moreover, theories of hegemonic stability and power transition have been built on the assumption that USA acts as a global stabilizer in times of crisis, and China acts as a free rider or a predator waiting to challenge American leadership. Another important aspect of power transition theory is the international system stability. Now, instability arises from challenger hegemon dynamics, not simply the distribution of power in the international system. But I do love to agree with this point mentioned by Zakaria that interdependence has made the world more stable. On the other hand, the interdependence of trade and travel should have intensified the need for cooperation between states that has created mutual vulnerabilities. Although there is a rise of multipolar world order and regionalism where countries are proactive in their own regions, it would have been great if Farid Zakaria has given his thoughtful insight. Again, the major shortcoming of Zakaria's lecture was that he just touched the major issue in the current time, which is the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on escalating geopolitical tensions. Although he expressed an opinion on the principal effect of COVID-19 that has put the world into fast forward, but he did not provide an insight on geopolitical shifts. I was hoping to have much more on this from Farid Zakaria. It would have been great to hear from him about the pandemic's geopolitical dimension, the competitive dynamics between the US and China, and the geopolitical zero sum thinking, where both countries have sought to capitalize on the crisis to boost their international profile instead of working together to mitigate the health and economic impacts of COVID 19. I would like to end this podcast by repeating some of the words of Farid Zakaria in the end of his speech. I do hope and agree with his suggestion to work out the new reality of stability. With openness, prosperity, human liberty, and freedom, cooperation, I guess we can build a stable international order and overcome the ongoing pandemic. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast.